Taf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis will begin Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the bottom. Hi Elon. We learned the brisa that said if a person put his eruv in a tree, if it's Lamala Me'asara, if it's higher than 10 tefachim from the ground, ein eruv. It's not an eruv. If it's below 10 tefachim, then it is an eruv. But if you put it in a basket, on a kalkola, and he hung it from the tree, then even if it's higher than 10 tefachim, the eruv is an eruv. The Gemara is going to now analyze this brisa. Hi Ilan Hechidami. What are the circumstances of the tree? If the tree does not have, the branches do not have a width of 4 tefachim, if it doesn't have 4 tefachim in the width of the tree, then even if it is higher than 10, Malkam Paturu, it's still considered a Malkam Patur. In order to be a Rishus HaYachid, it has to be 10 high at least, and with a width of Dalet al Dalet. Now, if it doesn't have Dalet, doesn't have the width of Dalet, even if it's higher than 10 Tfachim, it's not considered Rishus HaYachid, it's only considered Malkam Patur. So what is the problem? We're saying that if it's put higher than 10 Tfachim, the Eruv is not an Eruv because Huve'eruv, it's not a Malkam Echad, that he's in the Rishus HaRabim and the Eruv is in Rishus HaYachid. But if it doesn't have Dalet al Dalet, it's not a Rishus HaYachid, it's a Malkam Patur. And he would be able to bring the Eruv to him. So what's the problem? And if it has 4, it has a width of Dalet al Dalet. So then the Sefer that says Kinusana B'Kalkola, it says if he puts it in a basket, then the Eruv is an Eruv. Well, if that's the case, my havi, what does it help to put it in the basket? Even if the basket doesn't have the dimensions of Dalet al Dalet, even though the basket doesn't have that width, but if it's suspended from the tree and the tree is a Rishus HaYachid, as Taisus explains, then we would consider the basket to be Cher Rishus HaYachid. And the basket also would be considered part of the Rishus HaYachid, subordinate to the Rishus HaYachid, and it would have a din of Rishus HaYachid. So therefore, even if you put it in the basket and the basket didn't have Dalet al Dalet, it would still be considered Rishus HaYachid. He can't bring the Eruv to him, and why should the Eruv be kosher? Ravina explains Reisha the Isbe Arba. The Reisha is talking where the tree had a width of Dalet and had Arba. And therefore it's a Rishus HaYachid, and therefore the Eruv is not an Eruv because he can't bring the Eruv to him who is in the Rishus HaRabim. But the Sefer is talking about the Lesbe Arba. The tree itself does not have the width of Dalet, the Kalkola Mashlim El Arba. And the kalkola is mashlim also la'arba. But if you combine together the width of the basket with the tree, then it would have a combined width of at least Dalet, and therefore it would be considered a Malkam Choshev. Now, underlying this is the principle, as we will see, that Rabbi holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that holds that an Eruv has to be placed in a Malkam Choshev. And therefore, the place that it's resting on has to have a width of at least Dalet al Dalet. So therefore, we're talking where the basket doesn't have Dalet. But to be a kosher Eruv, it needs Dalet, so you have to combine it with the width of the tree. However, to be a kosher Eruv, the Eruv cannot be put in a Rishus HaYachid. Well, if you consider the width of the basket to be Dalet because you combine it with the tree, well, why wouldn't you say that the basket is now considered Rishus HaYachid, and what have you gained? What is it different than the Reisha? If that's a Rishus HaYachid, he can't bring the Eruv to him because he's in Rishus HaRabim. So the point is as follows. As far as the width of the basket is concerned, we combine the width of the basket with the tree, as we'll see momentarily how that works. But we're talking when the basket narrows on the bottom. So the top of the basket now is Dalet. It's a Malkam Choshev. But the Eruv is placed in the bottom of it. So therefore, the bottom of it is not considered to be a Rishus HaYachid. It's considered put in a place that has a Chashivas of Dalet. In order to say it's a kosher Eruv, valid Eruv, it's in a Malkam that's Dalet. But since the base of the kalkola is less, it narrows, it's less than Dalet, we can't consider the base of it a Rishus Yachid. So therefore, he could take the Eruv from the basket, from the bottom of the basket, and bring it to him, because he'd be taking from Makam Patur to the Rishus Harabim, to Smutra. So the Eruv is accessible to him, but it's considered like the Eruv is placed in a Makam Choshev, because the surface of the basket, the top part of the basket, is Dalet. So Amarvina Reisha Disbe Arba Tvachim, Arba, the Reisha is talking where it's the tree has 4. Seifa de Lesbe Arba, the tree doesn't have 4. The Kalkola Mashlimasa La Arba. But together, if you combine the basket with the tree, you have a surface of Dalet. Rabbi Savar like Rameir, Savar like Rav Yehuda, and Rabbi, who is the author of this brisa, he holds like Rameir, and he holds like Rav Yehuda. What is that? Savar like Rameir, Damar Chaykin Lahash. Now we want to combine the width of the basket with the width of the tree. While the tree is a solid surface, how does that allow us to view as the opening of the basket is wider? It has a wider opening. So that's the Shita of Rameir that says Chaykikim Lahashlim. We learned previously, if you can have a case, the Gabe Mezuzah, for instance. So in order to be Chay for Mezuzah, the doorway has to have a height of at least 10 with a width of Dalet Tvachim. Now if you have at the base of it, it's wider. But at the top of it, it narrows. It narrows on the top. So over here, at the height of 10, you don't have Dalet Tvachim. But if you carve out the thickness of the wall, then you would have Dalet. Rameir says you have this opening, it's more than Dalet, it's Dalet at the base. So you view this as being carved out, and therefore it's as if you have a width of Dalet at the height of 10 Tvachim high of the doorway. So similarly over here, in our case here, if you have the basket opening of the basket is not Dalet, but it's now hung from the branch, you view as you carve out this and hollow out this part of the tree, and so it's as if the opening of the basket is Dalet al Dalet. So he holds like Rameir that says Chaykikim Lahashlim. V'savar like Rav Yehuda, and he holds like Rav Yehuda Dam Rabbein and Erev al Magabe Makam Arba V'Leka. And he holds like Rav Yehuda that holds that you have to have an Erev on an area in a Makam Chashuv that is Dalet al Dalet. And without the basket, you wouldn't have Dalet. So therefore, it says in the Seifa that if the tree is not Dalet, it's not a kosher Eruv. Not because it's in Rishus Yachid, it's not, but it's not a Malkim Choshev. But if you have a basket where you can combine the width of the basket and with the tree, then we hold like Rav Meir that Chaykim Lahashlim. So it's a combination of the two shitas, like Rav Yehuda that you need a Malkim Choshev, you need Dalet al Dalet, and like Rav Meir that says Chaykim Lahashlim. My Rabbi Yehuda, where do we see that Rabbi Yehuda says you need an Erev and a Malkam Choshev Dalet al Dalet? It's not your Rabbi Yehuda. No, it's Kair B'Shus Harabim V'Niach Eruva Aleha. If he stuck a pole into the Rishus Harabim and he put the Erev on top of it, Gavaya Yud Rachov Dalet Eruva. If it's 10 high and it has a width of 4 Dalet al Dalet, it's a kosher of the Erev. V'Im Lav Ein Eruva. But if not, it's not a kosher Erev. Frag the Gemara, what do you mean Adarabah? If you have a post that's 10 high and Dalet al Dalet, that's Rishus Yachid. So how can that be a kosher Eruv? The Eruv is in Rishus Yachid, he's in Rishus Harabim. So it should not be a kosher. And opposite, if it's below 10, then the Eruv is not in Rishus Yachid. It's at most a Carmelist. So it is accessible to him if we're going according to Rebbe. So yes, we have to revise this. We have to mend this. Gavoy Asara, if it's 10 high, Tzarach Sheh B'Reisha Arba, then it has to have a width on it of Arba. It's not a kosher Eruv unless it has Dalet al Dalet, because you need an Eruv on a Malkam Dalet. Ein Gavoy Asara, if it's not 10 high, Ein Tzarach Sheh B'Reisha Arba. But if it's not 10 high, it does not have to have 4 on top, because if it's not 10 high, then it's in the airspace of the Rishus HaRabim, and we would say, Kluta Kamishahuncha, we would view it as that it's resting on the ground. If it's 10 high, then it's not part of the airspace of the Rishus HaRabim. In order to be kosher and erev, this has to be Dalet al Dalet, so to be considered munach on a Malkam Chashiv. Then it's munach on a Malkam Chashiv, it's a kosher erev. Now, you still have the problem, if he wants to make shvisa here, they're in 2 different places, well, it's kosher if he wants the shvisa to be on top. But if it's not Dalet al Dalet, it's not an erev b'chlal, because an erev has to have a width of Dalet al Dalet. If it's below 10, then it doesn't need Dalet al Dalet, because we say Kluta Kamishuncha, we view it as it's on the ground, and it is in the Malkam Chashiv that it's in the ground. Now Rashi points out that even though we don't say normally Kluta Kamishuncha, if something is on a surface, it's on a flat surface, and therefore over here, then how are we saying Kluta? But for the purposes of Eruv Chatzerais, we would view it as being within his Dalet al Dalet, when his area of Dalet al Dalet, Amais, within that enclosed area, and we would say Kluta, we would consider Kluta in this case over here. So therefore we see Rav Yehuda's Shita that we say you need a Malkam Dalet al Dalet. So the Gemara says, Kiman like Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. Let us say the way Ravina explained is not like Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. Now Ravina explained that we're talking about that there's a basket on top of the tree. The top of the basket is considered Dalet al Dalet because you combine, you say Chaykikim lahashlim, and therefore you view as the width is extended because you carve out portion of the tree, so you have an extended width. But the base of the basket is not Dalet. And therefore he said it's considered a Malkam Chashuv for the Eruv, but it's not considered a Rishus HaYachid because the bottom of the basket does not have a width of Dalet. It only has a width of a Dalet because on top you say Chaykim lahashlim. But on the bottom, it doesn't have a width of Dalet. So it's not considered Rishus HaYachid. Let's say that's not like Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. It's not Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. No, it's called a Rishus HaRabim. You stuck a reed into the Rishus HaRabim, v'niach b'reisha traskol, and you put a basket on top, v'zorak v'noch al gabav chayev. And if someone threw from the Rishus HaRabim, and it landed in the basket, he's chayev. He threw from the Rishus HaRabim. The basket is considered a Rishus HaYachid, so he threw from the Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid, and he's chayev. Now, why do we consider the basket to be a Rishus HaYachid? We consider it to be a Rishus HaYachid. You have the reed that doesn't have Dalet, but you have the basket on top. We say good achiz, and we view the wall, the edge of the basket as the walls of the basket as coming down, and you have 4 walls, imaginary walls. Now, even though this reed is not Dalet, so it's the top that's Dalet, but we view that there's imaginary walls coming down, so therefore it's an enclosed binary of Dalet. Well, why don't we say the same thing in the case of Ravina? You have the basket on top of the tree. You say Chaykikim lahashlim, and therefore you should say that there's Dalet all around, and that there's now Dalet coming down on all sides, and you have a Rishus HaYachid. Why would the Eruv be kosher even if by the base of the basket it's not Dalet? Because it's only Dalet by virtue of Chaykim lahashlim. But why would we not say, like we say over here, and we say good achis, and we view it as being now a Malkam Dalet all the way down? So why is the Eruv kosher in the case of the basket, where we say Chaykim lahashlim, even if the base isn't Dalet? Why don't we consider it as a Rishus HaYachid? Gemara says, the reason why over there is we say that we view it as Rishus Yachid because the Hadar Mitzvah, the walls, the imaginary walls, surround the reed. So therefore, you say Good Achis and it encloses it, it's considered to be a Rishus Yachid. But here in the case of Ravina, there's no walls surrounding it. There's not even imaginary walls surrounding it. You have to say firstly Chaykim Lahashlam. And then when you say Chaykim Lahashlam, you imagine like you carve out the tree and now you have the four walls. Now you have to say Good Achis. To say both Chaykim Lahashlam and Good Achis, that we won't say. That's why you don't consider it Rishus Yachid. He could agree to Rabbi Yehuda that Chaykim Lahashlam, but to say both, to say Good Achis rather, but to say both Chaykim Lahashlam and Good Achis, then he doesn't say. Rabbi Yirmiyah gives a different teretz. We don't have to say that the tree is not daled and the basket is, it's considered daled because you say Chaykim Lahashlim. You can say that the tree is daled. You can say that the tree is daled. If the tree is daled, why don't we consider the basket to be Chayr Rishus Yachid? How can you take from the basket? How can you take from the basket and bring it to you? Why isn't it a problem that the Erev is not accessible to him? He says, no, it's false. We could say that the tree really is daled. But the reason why it's a kosher Erev is because if you have a basket, you can now bring the basket, tilt it, and bend it down and bring it below 10, below Asara, and bring it to you. So if you do that, you're taking from Rishus Yachid to a Karmelis to the Rishus Rabban, although it is the Rabban. And we're going according to Rebbe, he's not Geyser Shus Ben Hashemashos. So the Erev is considered accessible to him, because even if the basket's on the tree, which is Rishus Yachid, and as it stands in the tree, it's considered Rishus Yachid, and therefore the Rishus Yachid. But it's still accessible because you don't have to take it from the basket, which is on the tree. You can bend the basket down, tilt it down below 10, and then you can take it, and it's accessible to him because there, below 10, the basket's not in the Rishus Yachid, so it is accessible.